Kate and William's Poised Farewell, Part 1. The autumn morning carried a crisp chill through the grand halls of Kensington Palace. Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge, stood before the tall windows of her private study, watching the golden leaves dance in the gentle breeze. Her fingers traced the edge of a carefully worded letter that had arrived just 3 days earlier. The invitation was printed on cream-colored paper with elegant gold trim, requesting their presence at what would become one of the most significant farewells in recent royal history. William entered the room quietly, his footsteps muffled by the Persian carpet that had been a wedding gift from his grandmother. He noticed the thoughtful expression on his wife's face immediately. After more than a decade of marriage, he could read her moods like pages in a familiar book. Something weighed heavily on her mind, and it wasn't the usual concerns about their children's schedules or upcoming royal engagements. "The children are asking about Saturday again," Catherine said softly, not turning from the window. Her voice carried that particular tone she used when processing difficult emotions. "George wants to know why we can't bring them along this time. Charlotte keeps insisting she has the perfect dress for such an important occasion." William moved to stand beside her, his presence offering the quiet support that had anchored their relationship through countless public and private moments. The letter in Catherine's hands rustled slightly as a passing cloud cast shadows across the room. He understood her hesitation without needing explanation. This farewell would be different from the ceremonial goodbyes they had participated in before. This one carried the weight of genuine emotion and irreversible change. The person they would be saying goodbye to had been a constant presence in their lives since their courtship began. Someone who had witnessed their most private moments of joy and struggle, who had been there through the births of their children and who had become more family than staff. The decision to maintain privacy around this farewell had been mutual, but it didn't make the approaching moment any easier to face. Catherine finally turned from the window, her blue eyes reflecting both sadness and determination. The morning. Light caught the simple gold chain around her neck, a gift from William during their engagement that she wore during moments when she needed to feel grounded. She folded the invitation carefully and placed it in the small wooden box where she kept meaningful correspondence. "I keep thinking about how much has changed since we first met them," she said, moving toward the comfortable armchair where she often sat to review her daily schedule. "Remember that first Christmas at Sandringham when they helped us navigate all the protocols? I was so nervous about getting everything right." William smiled at the memory, settling into the chair opposite hers. The room felt intimate despite its formal furnishings, filled with personal photographs and small mementos that told the story of their life together. "You were worried about which fork to use for the fish course," he recalled. "They spent an entire afternoon teaching you the proper order, and by dinner, you were more polished than some of the family members who had been doing it their whole lives." The conversation flowed naturally between them, as it always did when they found themselves alone together. They spoke of shared memories and quiet moments that the public never saw. Stories of late-night phone calls when the pressures of royal life felt overwhelming, of celebrations that happened away from cameras and crowds, of the steady presence that had made their journey easier to navigate. Catherine reached for her teacup, noting how the familiar ritual of afternoon tea brought comfort even on difficult days. The delicate china had been her grandmother-in-law's, another connection to the long line of women who had faced similar moments of transition and change. She wondered if they had felt the same mixture of gratitude and sorrow when saying goodbye to people who had become essential parts of their lives. "The arrangements are all in place," William said gently, understanding that talking through the practical details would help ease her emotional concerns. "The timing will allow for privacy, and we've ensured that everyone who should be there will have the opportunity to participate properly." The weight of their roles as senior royals meant that even their most personal moments carried public significance. This farewell would be photographed and documented, analyzed and discussed, but they were determined to preserve the authentic emotion at its heart. The challenge lay in balancing their private grief with their public duty, maintaining composure while honoring the genuine affection they felt. As the afternoon light began to fade, Catherine and William found themselves talking about the future as much as the past. Change had always been a constant in their lives, but some transitions felt more significant than others. This farewell marked the end of an era, the closing of a chapter that had defined much of their adult lives together. The decision to handle this moment with such careful attention to both dignity and genuine emotion reflected their growth as both individuals and as representatives of the Crown. They had learned through experience that the most powerful public moments often came from authentic private feelings, carefully shared with the world in ways that maintained appropriate boundaries while allowing people to connect with their humanity. Evening settled around Kensington Palace with unusual quietness, as if the building itself understood the significance of the approaching farewell. Catherine and William spent their time preparing not just logistically, but emotionally for a moment that would demonstrate their grace under pressure, while saying goodbye to someone who had profoundly shaped their journey together. Kate and William's Poised Farewell. Part 2. The morning of the farewell arrived with unexpected warmth for late autumn. Catherine woke before dawn, as she often did when important events lay ahead. The palace felt different somehow, charged with the quiet energy that preceded significant moments. She moved through her morning routine with deliberate care, each action a form of meditation that helped center her thoughts and emotions. In her dressing room, Catherine considered her wardrobe choices with unusual attention to detail. The outfit she selected would be scrutinized by millions, but more importantly, it needed to reflect the respect and affection she felt for the person they would be honoring. She chose a deep navy dress with subtle detailing, elegant without being flashy, appropriate for the solemnity of the occasion while maintaining the warmth that characterized her public persona. William found her in their private sitting room, reviewing the brief notes she had prepared for the day. Her handwriting filled several small cards, reminders of key moments and specific acknowledgments she wanted to include in her remarks. The careful preparation revealed how seriously she took this responsibility, how determined she was to find the right words for an impossible situation. "I dreamed about the first time we met them," Catherine said as William joined her with his morning coffee. The dream had been vivid, filled with the nervous energy of those early days when everything about royal life felt new and slightly overwhelming. "I was so worried about making the right impression, and they were so patient with all my questions about protocol and expectations." The memory brought a soft smile to her face, tinged with the bittersweetness that colored all their reflections about this farewell. Those early interactions had established a foundation of trust and mutual respect that had grown stronger over the years. The relationship had evolved from formal professional interactions to something much more personal and meaningful. William understood the significance of her dream. Their shared experiences with this person had become interwoven with their own love story, present at moments of triumph and challenge alike. The wedding planning sessions where every detail had been discussed and perfected. The quiet conversations after difficult public appearances when honest feedback was needed and gratefully received. The celebrations of their children's milestones, witnessed and shared by someone who genuinely cared about their family's well-being. As they prepared to leave for the farewell ceremony, Catherine paused to look at herself in the full-length mirror that had belonged to William's mother. The reflection showed a woman who had grown into her role with grace and determination, but who still carried the genuine warmth that had first attracted public affection. Today, that warmth would be essential as they navigated the complex emotions of saying goodbye. The drive to the ceremony location took them through parts of London that held special significance in their relationship, past the hotel where they had celebrated their engagement announcement, through neighborhoods where they had made official visits that had been guided and supported by the person they were honoring today. Catherine watched the familiar streets pass by, each landmark triggering memories of shared experiences and gradual understanding. Their conversation during the drive focused on practical details and emotional preparation in equal measure. William reminded Catherine of specific acknowledgments they wanted to make, while she shared her thoughts about balancing personal feelings with public expectations. They had learned through experience that their most effective public moments came from authentic emotions, carefully expressed within appropriate boundaries. The venue for the farewell had been chosen with deliberate care, intimate enough to feel personal, but formal enough to reflect the significance of the occasion. As their car approached, Catherine could see the small gathering of people who had been invited to participate. Each person represented a different aspect of the honoree's long career and varied contributions, creating a community of respect and affection. Catherine felt the familiar flutter of nerves that preceded important public appearances. But this time the sensation was different. The nervousness came not from concern about protocol or performance, but from the weight of genuine emotion and the challenge of expressing it appropriately. She wanted her words and actions to convey the true depth of gratitude and affection she felt, while maintaining the composure expected of her position. William reached for her hand as they prepared to leave the car, a gesture of support that had become second nature over their years together. The simple touch provided grounding and strength, reminding her that they would face this moment as they faced all significant challenges, together, with mutual support and shared purpose. The autumn air was crisp and clear as they stepped out of the car, and Catherine noticed how the light seemed particularly bright and golden. Everything felt heightened and significant, as if the natural world was participating in the importance of the occasion. The gathered crowd was small but attentive, their faces reflecting the same mixture of respect and sadness that Catherine felt in her own heart. As they walked toward the entrance, Catherine found herself thinking about the difference between public goodbyes and private farewells. This moment would be both, requiring them to honor their personal feelings while fulfilling their public roles. The challenge lay in maintaining authenticity while meeting expectations, in being genuinely present while remaining appropriately composed. The doors opened before them, and Catherine took a deep breath, preparing to step into a moment that would test her ability to blend personal emotion with public grace. William's presence beside her provided strength and stability, a reminder that even in the most challenging moments, they had each other's support and understanding. Kate and William's Poised Farewell, Part 3. The interior of the venue had been transformed for the occasion, decorated with elegant simplicity that reflected both the formality of the event and the personal nature of the farewell. Catherine noticed immediately how every detail had been carefully considered, from the arrangement of flowers to the positioning of chairs, creating an atmosphere that felt both ceremonial and intimate. As they entered the main room, Catherine was struck by the faces of the people already gathered. Each person represented a different chapter in the honoree's long career, creating a living timeline of service and dedication. She recognized colleagues, family members, and friends, all united by their shared appreciation for someone who had touched their lives in meaningful ways. The person they were honoring sat in a place of honor at the front of the room, and Catherine felt her composure waver slightly as their eyes met. The smile she received in return was warm and genuine, filled with the same kindness that had characterized every interaction over the years. In that moment, the formal setting faded away, leaving only the connection between people who had shared significant experiences together. William guided Catherine to their designated seats, his hand remaining supportively at her back. She was grateful for his presence, for the way he seemed to understand exactly when she needed encouragement and when she needed space to process her emotions. Their partnership had been tested by many public and private challenges, but moments like this reminded her why their bond had grown stronger rather than weaker under pressure. The ceremony began with remarks from senior colleagues, each speaker sharing memories and acknowledgments that painted a picture of exceptional service and personal dedication. Catherine listened carefully to each tribute, recognizing stories that resonated with her own experiences. The consistent themes that emerged were kindness, professionalism, and an unusual ability to balance institutional requirements with genuine human connection. When Catherine's turn came to speak, she rose from her seat with careful composure, acutely aware of the cameras that would capture every gesture and expression. The written notes in her hand provided structure, but she knew that the most important elements of her remarks would come from the heart. She had learned over the years that authentic emotion, appropriately expressed, created the most meaningful, public moments. "When I first entered this world," Catherine began, her voice clear and steady despite the emotion she felt, "everything seemed overwhelming and complicated. The protocols, the expectations, the constant awareness that every action, would be observed and analyzed. What made the difference was having someone who understood both the institutional requirements and the human challenges, someone who could guide without judgment and support without condition. Her words carried across the room with quiet authority, each sentence carefully crafted but genuinely felt. Catherine spoke about specific moments when guidance had been essential, about advice that had proven invaluable during difficult times, about the gradual development of trust and mutual respect that had made professional obligations feel like personal privileges. The audience listened with complete attention, recognizing the sincerity in Catherine's voice and manner. She had grown, over the years, from a nervous newcomer to a confident representative of the crown, but she had never lost the warmth and genuineness that made her relatable to people from all walks of life. Today, those qualities served her well as she balanced personal gratitude with public responsibility. William watched his wife with pride and admiration, recognizing the skill with which she navigated the complex demands of the moment. He had seen her grow in confidence and capability over their years together, but he never ceased to be impressed by her ability to remain authentically herself while fulfilling the most demanding public roles. Catherine's remarks included specific acknowledgments of contributions that might otherwise have gone unrecognized, moments of support during challenging times, and the countless small kindnesses that had made difficult periods more manageable. She spoke about the importance of having someone who understood the unique pressures of royal life, while maintaining perspective about what truly mattered in the broader context of service and family. The emotion in her voice was controlled, but evident, reflecting the genuine affection and respect she felt. Catherine had learned that the most powerful public communications came from authentic feelings, carefully shared in ways that maintained appropriate boundaries while allowing people to connect with shared human experiences of gratitude, loss, and transition. As she concluded her remarks, Catherine felt a sense of completion and satisfaction. She had managed to express her true feelings within the constraints of public expectations, honoring both her personal relationship with the honoree and her responsibilities as a representative of the royal family. The balance had not been easy to achieve, but the result felt authentic and meaningful. The applause that followed was warm and sustained, reflecting not just appreciation for Catherine's words, but recognition of the grace with which she had handled a difficult moment. The audience understood that they had witnessed something genuine and heartfelt, a public figure allowing appropriate vulnerability while maintaining the dignity expected of her position. William rose to join Catherine as she returned to her seat, his presence providing immediate comfort and support. The most challenging part of the ceremony was complete, but the day would continue to test their ability to balance personal emotions with public responsibilities. Together, they had already demonstrated the poise and authenticity that would make this farewell memorable for all the right reasons. Kate and William's Poised Farewell, Part 4. Following Catherine's heartfelt remarks, the ceremony continued with other speakers sharing their own memories and tributes. Each contribution added depth to the portrait of someone who had dedicated their career to supporting the royal family while maintaining their own integrity and personal values. Catherine listened to each speaker with genuine interest, discovering aspects of the honoree's work and character that she hadn't fully appreciated before. During a brief intermission, Catherine and William had the opportunity to speak privately with some of the other attendees. These conversations revealed the breadth of impact that one person could have across different areas of royal work and personal relationships. Catherine found herself deeply moved by stories from colleagues who had been mentored and supported, from family members who had watched a loved one balance demanding professional responsibilities with personal commitments. The informal conversations also provided Catherine with perspective on her own journey within the royal family. Several people mentioned how much her approach to public service had evolved and matured, acknowledging her growth from a newcomer learning the ropes to an established member of the family who now served as a mentor and example for others. These observations helped her understand that today's farewell was not just about honoring someone else's service, but about recognizing her own development and future responsibilities. William noticed how Catherine absorbed these conversations, processing not just the immediate emotions of the farewell, but the broader implications for their ongoing roles. He admired her ability to find meaning and learning opportunities even in difficult moments, to use personal experiences as foundations for understanding and empathy in her public work. When the formal ceremony resumed, the atmosphere had shifted, slightly. The earlier tension and nervousness had given way to a sense of celebration and appreciation. People seemed more relaxed, more willing to share genuine emotions rather than maintaining rigid formal composure. Catherine felt this change as well, finding it easier to be present and authentic as the event progressed. The highlight of the latter portion of the ceremony was a presentation that honored the honorees' specific contributions to the royal family's work over many years. Catherine watched as examples were shared of innovative approaches to challenging problems, of behind-the-scenes efforts that had made public events more successful, of personal support provided during the family's most difficult periods. What struck Catherine most powerfully was the consistency of the themes that emerged. Every story, every example, every tribute emphasized the same qualities: genuine care for people, attention to detail, ability to balance competing demands, and unwavering commitment to excellence without sacrificing humanity. These were qualities that Catherine aspired to in her own work and personal life. During the presentation, Catherine found herself thinking about legacy and impact, about how individual contributions could ripple outward to influence countless other people and situations. The person they were honoring had never sought public recognition or personal glory, but had nonetheless left an indelible mark on everyone whose life they had touched. It was a powerful reminder of the importance of service that prioritized substance over visibility. The emotional center of the afternoon came when the honoree was invited to share their own reflections on their years of service. The remarks were characteristically modest and focused on gratitude rather than personal achievements. Catherine listened with growing admiration as the speech acknowledged colleagues, celebrated shared successes, and expressed confidence in the future of the institutions they were leaving behind. What moved Catherine most was the genuine humility and grace displayed by someone who had every reason to feel proud of their accomplishments and contributions. The speech emphasized collaboration over individual achievement, expressed gratitude for opportunities to serve rather than dwelling on sacrifices made, and looked toward the future with optimism rather than sadness about endings. The honorees' words also included specific acknowledgments of William and Catherine, recognizing their growth as both individuals and as representatives of the Crown. The public recognition of their development and contributions was unexpected and deeply touching, particularly coming from someone whose opinion they valued so highly. Catherine felt tears forming in her eyes as she listened to these personal acknowledgments, but she managed to maintain her composure while allowing appropriate emotion to show. The balance was delicate but essential, reflecting genuine feeling while meeting the expectations of public behavior. She had learned over the years that people connected more deeply with authentic emotion than with rigid perfection. As the formal remarks concluded, the atmosphere in the room was one of completion and satisfaction. Everyone present had participated in something meaningful and genuine, a farewell that honored both professional achievements and personal relationships. The ceremony had managed to balance institutional formality with human authenticity, creating an experience that would remain meaningful for everyone involved. The final element of the formal program was a presentation of gifts and mementos, tokens of appreciation that would serve as lasting reminders of years of dedicated service. Catherine watched as these presentations were made with ceremony and warmth, each item carefully chosen to reflect personal interests and professional achievements. The combination of public recognition and personal tokens created a sense of closure that felt both appropriate and heartfelt. Catherine realized that she was witnessing a masterclass in how to handle significant transitions with grace and dignity, lessons that would serve her well in her own future responsibilities and eventual transitions. Kate and William's Poised Farewell, Part 5A's. The formal ceremony concluded. The gathering transitioned into a more intimate reception, allowing for personal conversations and private goodbyes. Catherine found this portion of the event both easier and more challenging than the public ceremony. The reduced formality made authentic interaction possible, but the personal nature of the conversations made emotional control more difficult to maintain. The reception space had been arranged to encourage mingling and conversation, with small groupings of chairs and tables that facilitated intimate discussions. Catherine moved through the room with practiced grace, engaging with different groups while maintaining awareness of William's presence in the overall flow of the event. Their years of experience with public gatherings served them well, but this felt different because of the genuine emotional investment they both had in the occasion. Catherine's conversations during the reception revealed aspects of the honoree's influence that she hadn't fully appreciated before. Colleagues shared stories of mentorship and guidance that had shaped their own careers. Family members spoke about the challenge of loving someone whose work demanded so much time and energy, but who had never lost sight of what truly mattered: in personal relationships. One particularly meaningful conversation was with a young staff member who had recently joined the royal household. The person spoke with obvious admiration about the example set by the honoree, about lessons learned. Through observation and direct guidance, Catherine recognized her younger self in this conversation, remembering her own early days of uncertainty and appreciation for patient guidance. The interaction reminded Catherine of her responsibility to provide similar support and mentorship for newcomers to the royal family. She realized that today's farewell marked not just the end of an era, but the beginning of her own expanded role as a senior member of the family. The recognition was both humbling and motivating, clarifying her sense of purpose and future direction. William joined several of these conversations, adding his own memories and observations. Catherine watched him interact with obvious comfort and genuine warmth, demonstrating the leadership qualities that would serve him well in his future role as king. Together, they represented continuity and stability while acknowledging change and transition. The most emotionally challenging moment of the reception came when Catherine and William had the opportunity for a private conversation with the person they were honoring. Away from the larger group, in a quiet corner of the reception space, they were able to speak more personally about their gratitude and their hopes for the future. The conversation was warm but bittersweet, filled with shared memories and mutual appreciation. Catherine found herself struggling to maintain composure as they discussed specific moments of support and guidance that had been particularly meaningful. The honoree's response was characteristically gracious, deflecting personal praise while expressing confidence in Catherine and William's continued growth and success. What struck Catherine most powerfully during this private conversation was the genuine care and concern expressed for her personal well-being, separate from her public role. The questions about her happiness, her sense of fulfillment, and her hopes for the future reflected a level of personal investment that went far beyond professional obligation. This individual attention and concern had been a constant throughout their relationship, but Catherine was only now fully appreciating its rarity and value. The conversation also touched on practical matters related to the transition, ensuring that ongoing projects and relationships would be properly managed. Even in the midst of an emotional farewell, the honoree demonstrated the attention to detail and concern for continuity that had characterized their entire career. Catherine admired this ability to balance personal feelings with professional responsibilities, seeing it as a model for her own approach to difficult situations. As their private conversation drew to a close, Catherine felt a profound sense of gratitude mixed with genuine sadness. She realized that she was saying goodbye not just to a colleague or advisor, but to someone who had become a trusted friend and supporter during the most formative period of her adult life. The relationship had provided stability and guidance during times of uncertainty, celebration during moments of triumph, and comfort during periods of difficulty. The final moments of their private conversation were marked by mutual expressions of affection and respect, carefully calibrated to acknowledge the depth of their relationship while maintaining appropriate boundaries. Catherine felt that they had managed to honor both their personal connection and their professional roles, creating a farewell that was both meaningful and appropriate. As they rejoined the larger group, Catherine felt emotionally drained but also oddly strengthened. The private conversation had provided closure while reinforcing her sense of purpose and direction. She understood more clearly now what she had gained from this relationship and what she hoped to provide for others in similar positions of transition and growth. The reception continued for another hour, allowing time for everyone present to participate in meaningful conversations and personal farewells. Catherine used this time to process her emotions and observations, gradually transitioning from the intensity of the private goodbye to the public composure that would be required for their departure. William remained close by, providing subtle support and encouragement without being intrusive. Their partnership had developed to the point where they could communicate complex emotions and needs with minimal verbal exchange, relying on shared understanding and mutual trust to navigate challenging situations together. Kate and William's poised farewell. Part 6. The final moments of the farewell reception approached with the golden light of late afternoon streaming through tall windows. Catherine stood near one of these windows, taking a moment to collect herself. Before the public departure that would conclude the day's events, the warm light seemed to emphasize the significance of the transition they had all witnessed, marking the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. As guests began to prepare for departure, Catherine observed how the honoree moved through the room, speaking personally with each attendee, ensuring that no one felt overlooked or undervalued. Even in this moment of personal transition, the focus remained on others' comfort and satisfaction. Catherine recognized this as a final demonstration of the qualities that had made this person so effective and beloved throughout their career. The formal conclusion of the event required Catherine and William to make brief public remarks as the gathering ended. They had prepared these comments carefully, wanting to strike the right balance between personal gratitude and institutional recognition. The challenge was to acknowledge the private emotions they felt, while maintaining the dignity and composure expected of their public roles. Catherine's final public comments were brief but heartfelt, focusing on the themes of service, dedication, and the lasting impact of individual contributions to institutional success. She spoke about the honor of witnessing such an exemplary career and the privilege of learning from someone who embodied the highest standards of professional and personal conduct. William's remarks complemented Catherine's, adding his own perspective on leadership and mentorship. Together, their comments created a comprehensive tribute that honored both the individual being celebrated and the institutions they had all served together. The audience responded with warm appreciation, recognizing the sincerity and thoughtfulness of their words. As the formal remarks concluded, the time came for the actual farewell. This moment had been anticipated throughout the day, but its arrival still felt sudden and emotionally challenging. Catherine approached with measured steps, aware that their final interaction would be observed and photographed, but determined to remain authentic within appropriate boundaries. The final exchange was conducted with remarkable grace by all participants. Catherine's composure remained intact, but her genuine emotion was evident in her expression and manner. The honoree responded with characteristic warmth and dignity, making the interaction feel both formal and personal. William's presence provided balance and support, representing institutional continuity while acknowledging personal transition. What struck observers most powerfully was the evident mutual respect and affection displayed by all participants in this final moment. There was no artifice or performance, only genuine human connection appropriately expressed within the constraints of public roles and expectations. The moment felt both intimate and universal, touching something fundamental about relationships, transitions, and the passage of time. The physical farewell was conducted with perfect protocol, but the emotional content transcended mere ceremony. Catherine's final words were quietly spoken, meant for the honoree alone, expressing gratitude and good wishes that came directly from the heart. The response was equally personal and meaningful, providing closure while leaving room for continued connection in different circumstances. As their car pulled away from the venue, Catherine felt a complex mixture of emotions settling over her. The sadness of separation was real and significant, but it was balanced by gratitude for the experiences shared and confidence in the lessons learned. The day had demonstrated her own growth and capability while honoring someone who had contributed significantly to that development. William reached for Catherine's hand as they began the drive back to Kensington Palace, offering comfort and companionship without need for words. The gesture represented the partnership that had sustained them through this challenging day and would continue to support them through future transitions and responsibilities. The silence in the car was comfortable rather than awkward, filled with reflection and processing rather than emptiness. Both Catherine and William understood that they had participated in something significant and meaningful, a farewell that had honored the past while looking toward the future with optimism and determination. As London passed by outside their windows, Catherine found herself thinking about legacy and influence, about the ways that individual relationships could shape entire institutions and personal development. The day had reinforced her understanding of service as something that extended far beyond public appearances and formal duties, encompassing the daily choices to support, encourage, and guide others. The experience had also clarified Catherine's sense of her own role and responsibilities within the royal family. She understood more clearly now that she had moved beyond the position of student and apprentice to become someone who could and should provide guidance and support for others facing similar transitions and challenges. Returning to Kensington Palace, Catherine felt changed by the day's events in ways both subtle and significant. The farewell had been conducted with grace and dignity, but more importantly, it had provided closure and perspective that would influence her approach to future relationships and responsibilities. She had learned something valuable about handling difficult transitions while maintaining authenticity and compassion. The evening ahead would be quiet and private, allowing time to process the day's emotions and experiences with family. Catherine looked forward to sharing appropriate details with their children, helping them understand something about service, gratitude, and the importance of treating all relationships with respect and care. As they arrived home, Catherine reflected on how the day had demonstrated the power of authentic emotion appropriately expressed, the importance of grace under pressure, and the lasting impact of relationships built on mutual respect and genuine care. These lessons would serve her well in all her future roles and responsibilities, both public and private.